Congratulations and welcome to our team. We are happy you are here. As part of the enrollment process, you are required to participate in new employee safety orientation. The training will last 1 hour and include a quiz at the end, so please pay attention. Upon completion of this training, should you have any questions, please ask your trainer or your supervisor. And again, on behalf of Mechanical Incorporated, welcome. Mechanical Incorporated is required to provide a safe work environment for our employees. Employees are to perform work in the safest possible manner and to comply with all local, state, and federal safety laws and ordinances. The objective of our safety program is the prevention of accidents and incidents. And remember, all accidents and incidences are preventable. It is the policy of Mechanical Incorporated to provide a safe and healthful work environment for each of our employees. All employees shall work diligently to achieve zero occupational injuries and illnesses. Our safety performance shall be evaluated based on the number of employee accidents and near misses we have, employee and job site observations, and results from our incentive program as well as OSHA citations. At Mechanical Incorporated, safety is everyone's responsibility. However, our foremen are the job site safety leaders. Our employees are responsible for working according to good safe practices, refraining from any unsafe acts, using all safety devices and personal protective equipment, reporting unsafe acts or conditions to their supervisors, and attending and participating in safety meetings and making safety observations. Working safe is a condition of your employment. We do, however, reward our employees for behaving safe. Each month, our foremen lead a meeting with their crew members asking for unsafe observations made and what was done to remedy the issue. The 5 employees that participate will be included in a $50 gift card drawing with multiple winners. We enforce our safety program utilizing a 3-step process. A first violation may result in a verbal warning. A second violation could result in a 2-day suspension without pay. A third violation or any flagrant safety violations may result in termination. Actions that may require the enforcement policy to be enacted include but are not limited to not wearing the required PPE, not using a ladder properly, not using fall protection, operating equipment without proper training, performing unsafe acts, and there may be a job site specific or customer or general contractor specific infraction. Employee safety orientation may include the following: new employee safety orientation, job site specific safety orientation, and or customer specific safety orientation. Mechanical is required to provide safety training to its employees. OSHA compliance training pertains to these standards: 29 CFR 1910 for general industry and 29 CFR 1926 for the construction industry. Training specific to our company includes new employee safety orientation, daily safety training, high-risk activity training, weekly toolbox talks, task-specific training, and customer or general contractor specific training. Although uncommon, OSHA may inspect a job site based on the following scenarios: 1, imminent danger; 2, fatalities and catastrophes; 3, an employee complaint; 4, referrals; 5 follow-up visits, and 6 planned or programmed inspections. And fines can range from $7,000 to $129,000. There are generally 5 steps associated with an OSHA inspection. 1. OSHA arrives at the job site. 2. OSHA conducts an opening conference. 3. OSHA conducts an inspection walk-around. 4. A closing conference takes place after the walk-around. And 5. Citations and penalties may be issued. Our employees must abide by our substance abuse policy, which includes the following. Any use, possession, distribution, or sale of illegal drugs is prohibited. Employees are prohibited of being under the influence of illegal drugs or alcohol. If employees are prescribed medication, they must inform their supervisor. Employees must report any suspected intoxicated employees to management and do not operate or possess drugs or alcohol in company or personal vehicles used for company activities. The following scenarios require drug and alcohol screening of our employees. Any prospective employees, any employees returning to work from injury, any post-accidents, reasonable suspicion, complying with contractual agreements, or complying with USDOT regulations. We are required by OSHA to keep records of all work-related occupational injuries and illnesses that meet OSHA's recordable criteria, which includes employee fatalities, loss of consciousness, restriction of work duties, transferred to another job task, medical treatment beyond first aid, and these incidences are recorded on our OSHA 300 and 300A log and posted at select job sites from February 1st to April 30th. Safety planning starts at the beginning of a job and is carried through to its completion. Our pre-job planning process consists of our project managers completing our pre-job safety checklist and activity hazard analyses. On-site job safety planning includes all of the following: morning huddles, weekly toolbox talks, before starting new tasks. Our employees must be involved with the planning process as well as our subcontractors. The purpose of our modified duty return to work program is to bring in injured employees back to work as soon as possible, abide by doctors' prescribed restrictions, and assign light duty work when available. The goals of our program are to reduce direct and indirect costs, maintain a more stable workforce, address both the physical and psychological recovery processes, create a sense of confidence of injured employees, and minimize chance of re-injury. The purpose of our vehicle loss prevention program simply is to prevent vehicle-related losses. Drivers are required to meet the following criteria. They must submit to a driver's license background check. They must possess a valid driver's license. They must comply with all laws and regulations. Our program tracks dangerous driving behaviors, and if necessary, we may enforce the policy, which may require driving safety training or being removed from one of our vehicles. Driving under the influence of drugs or alcohol is prohibited. Pre-trip vehicle inspections must take place. Company vehicles must be maintained in safe operating condition. Drivers should not exceed rated load capacities or speed limits. Loads must be secured, and accidents must be reported immediately. The general requirements of our fleet management policy are as follows. Employees must be authorized to operate a company vehicle. Company vehicles are for company use only. Employees must possess a valid driver's license and report all auto accidents and citations immediately. Drivers must make sure that company vehicles are mechanically fit for safe operation, and the outer appearance must be clean and damage-free. And most importantly, vehicles must be operated in a safe manner. To be qualified to drive one of our vehicles, you must have a valid driver's license, an MVR report, a drug and alcohol screen, and maintain a clean driving record. GPS tracking devices are installed on all company vehicles and record reckless driving events. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations must be followed, and commercial vehicle requirements may be necessary for certain vehicles. Tactics our company uses to prevent property losses include parking company vehicles in designated, safe, well-lighted areas at the end of each shift, placing tools and equipment in locked job boxes when not in use and at the end of the shift, installing security lighting and deadbolt locks on our trailers. Company offices and job trailers in high crime areas are to be equipped with sufficient security equipment. We must store equipment and vehicles in buildings when possible. We must store flammable materials properly. Work areas in office buildings shall have fire extinguishers available, and hot work is to be performed in a safe manner. Tactics we use to prevent general losses include utilizing straight ladders properly and taking them down immediately after use. Construction materials shall be stored properly away from leading edges where materials could fall to a lower level. Vehicles shall be stored in safe areas such as buildings. Construction equipment shall be inspected prior to each use. Employees should follow all hot work protocols, and fire extinguishers shall always be available. Chemicals shall be stored and handled properly. When excavations take place, we must call Julie prior to, and we must be aware of and avoid all overhead utilities. Our incident investigation and reporting process consists of the following 6 steps. First and foremost, we must attend to the injured person's medical needs. 2. Attend to the incident scene, correcting any unsafe conditions. 3. Notify the site supervisor and the safety department. 4. Conduct a formal investigation. 5. Complete the incident form. 6. If medical attention is needed, a drug and alcohol screen is required. And don't forget that near misses and auto accidents must also be investigated. For the remainder of this orientation, we will cover company-specific safety procedures. Acids and caustics. PPE may include splash-proof safety goggles, a face shield, and chemical gloves. Safety data sheets must be available. Adequate ventilation must be used. Respiratory protection may be needed. We must follow all lockout, tagout, and tryout procedures and line breaking requirements. Safety planning may include an activity hazard analysis. Aerial work platforms. Company requirements regarding aerial work platforms include operators must be properly trained to operate the equipment. Equipment must be inspected prior to each use. Any damaged equipment must be removed. You must work from the platform only and keep the platform clean. Operate equipment on firm, level surfaces. Have adequate clearance overhead. Always enter and exit lifts from ground level and safely. Close gate and attach chains immediately. Prior to operating, test ground controls to lower lift in the event of an emergency, and always have a rescue plan in place prior to performing work in lifts. Air quality. To maintain good breathable air, we must do the following. Ventilate work areas. Use smoke eaters. Perform welding activities outdoors if possible. Use scrubbers on combustible engine equipment. Locate combustible engine equipment properly. Wear respirators if necessary. Monitor air with a 4-gas air monitor. And report air quality issues to the supervisor. Ammonia. Working safely around ammonia is extremely important. You must do the following. First, you must participate in familiarization training. You must don PPE including eye, face, skin protection, and respiratory protection for working with ammonia gas. You must complete and abide by the hot work permit, perform lockout, tagout, and tryout, and line breaking procedures. Use proper ventilation, properly store construction materials, and have an emergency action plan for a spill or release. Asbestos. Our work may require us to be exposed to asbestos-containing materials. Buildings built before 1980 could contain asbestos. Insulation, ceiling and floor tile, wallboard, and some adhesives may contain asbestos. Stop work if asbestos is expected and danger tape the area off, place signage, and report the discovery immediately to your supervisor. You can resume work when asbestos is abated and an all clear is given. Bloodborne pathogens. Performing work in healthcare and wastewater treatment plants and administering first aid and CPR may expose our employees to bloodborne pathogens. To prevent these exposures, first aid kits shall be made available to all employees. Employees are required to participate in annual training. Protection from bloodborne pathogens includes engineering controls, such as using a tool or equipment to prevent exposures, and administrative controls, using PPE. Proper cleaning and disinfecting of exposed areas must take place immediately if an exposure occurs, and a post-exposure evaluation may be needed by a medical provider. We must dispose of contaminated materials properly. The hepatitis B vaccination is available to employees. And for more information, you can refer to our bloodborne pathogen exposure control plan. Carbon monoxide. To combat exposures to carbon monoxide, use adequate ventilation. Attach scrubbers on combustible engines. Use 4-gas monitors. Know the symptoms of exposure, which may include headaches, nausea, dizziness, breathlessness, collapsing, or loss of consciousness. Compressed gas cylinders. Gas cylinders can be a projectile hazard if not properly handled. We must do the following. Secure cylinders when transporting them. Store in vertical positions and secure with chains or a cart and away from flames or heat sources. Valve protection caps must be replaced when not in use. Regulators must be used and not damaged, and must be removed when not in use or in transport. Cylinders shall be equipped with flashback arresters. All welding equipment shall be inspected prior to each use. Cylinders shall be kept away from electrical current. Oxygen and acetylene cylinders shall be separated by a minimum of 20 feet or by a half-hour rated 5-foot-high non-combustible barrier. And we must keep oxygen cylinders away from oil or grease to prevent fires. Concrete coring and cutting. Steps associated with coring and cutting concrete safely include using wet methods when cutting or coring concrete, using tools equipped with a collection device or a vacuum attachment, using HEPA vacuums, disposing of dust and sludge properly, Scanning areas prior to coring or cutting to prevent contacting buried utilities. Securing and catching cores when breaking free. Creating a controlled access zone around and below coring and cutting activities. Wearing all of the required PPE and avoiding exposure to respirable crystalline silica dust. Confined space entry. The definition of a permit-required confined space includes having limited means of entry or exit, is large enough for a worker to enter it, and is not intended for regular and continuous occupancy. To enter a permit-required confined space, all crew members must be trained. Spaces must be tested with the use of a 4-gas monitor. A permit must be completed and followed, and abiding by the company policy. Employees do not perform confined space entry rescue, they call 911. Cranes and derricks. Whenever we hire a crane company, we must do the following. We must get a copy of all crane inspections and operator's license. The equipment shall not be loaded beyond its maximum rated capacity. A certified rigger and signal person must be used, and employees are not to position themselves under suspended loads, and we must use taglines. We must create a controlled access zone around the crane and lift path to avoid unauthorized personnel from entering the areas. Cranes shall be placed on firm and level ground. We must have adequate room made available for rotating crane equipment, and we must stay clear of overhead electrical utilities. Demolition work. When we perform demolition work, we must do the following. Wear the required PPE. Secure materials before breaking free. Use mechanical equipment when possible. Hand and power tools must be in good working condition. Inspect all demolition tools prior to use. Remove power sources when making adjustments. Keep body parts free of pinch points and line of fire. If asbestos-containing materials or lead are suspected, stop and contact the supervisor. Electrical safe work practices. To keep our job sites safe from electrical hazards, ground fault circuit interrupters shall be used. Portable tools and appliances shall be double insulated. Extension cords shall be rated to accept the maximum current. Extension cords shall be protected from damage on job sites. Extension cords shall be supported off of the ground, and extension cords shall be inspected prior to each use. Damaged equipment shall be taken out of service. Emergency action planning. Employees shall be trained on how to respond to an emergency and will be taught how to report emergencies. Emergency scenarios we may encounter are fires, earthquakes, chemical releases, severe weather, catastrophic events, multiple site injuries, and bomb threats or civil threats. In the event of an active shooter at one of our job sites, we must do the following. Run if you can, hide if you must, fight if you have to, and then call 911. Emergency response and first aid. Mechanical is required to provide emergency response and first aid services to its employees. Employees are to call 911 when a fellow employee has difficulty breathing or is severely injured. First aid, CPR, and AED certification training is provided to supervisory employees who serve as a designated first aid CPR and AED person on the job site. First aid kits shall be made available to all employees, and the kits shall be inventoried and updated as needed by a competent person. Environmental policy. Mechanical has adopted a formal environmental policy which is central to our business objectives. The policy must address the following. It must comply with all relevant laws. We must salvage and reuse materials when able to. We must purchase used materials when available. We must use materials that reduce waste. We must recycle waste properly on our job sites. We must store materials properly. We must dispose of materials properly. We must reduce energy use by increasing energy efficiency. We must keep equipment serviced and well maintained, and we must ensure compliance with codes of practice at all times. Excavations. Excavation work is a high-risk activity that we perform regularly. We must do the following to reduce risks associated with excavations. Workers shall be protected from cave-ins by using bracing, sloping, or trench boxes. We must call Julie prior to digging to avoid contacting buried utilities. Spoil piles shall be placed at least 2 feet away from the excavation opening. Ladders shall be provided in excavations 4 feet deep or more and at every 25 feet from workers. Shoring and bracing shall be inspected daily. Adequate barricades and signs shall be provided. No employees may work in excavations alone or where standing water exists, and pre-excavation safety planning is required prior to excavating. Extreme weather illnesses. Construction workers are exposed to the elements. Extreme weather illnesses consist of the following: heat exhaustion, heat cramps, heat stroke, hypothermia, and frostbite. Breaking in cool environments, drinking water, dressing in layers, and reporting to work well rested and in good health will help prevent extreme weather illnesses. Fault prevention and protection. Falls are the leading cause of fatalities and injuries in our industry. Fall protection is required at 4 feet in general industry facilities and at 6 feet on construction job sites. Guardrails, personal fall rest systems, and hole covers are examples of fall protection we use on our job sites. Fall protection training is required prior to use, and employees are required to inspect fall protection equipment prior to use. Fire prevention and protection. Fires can injure employees and destroy job sites. We must do the following to prevent fires. Smoking is prohibited in designated areas only. Abide by all warning signs and labels. Proper storage of flammable materials is necessary. Fire extinguishers must be available. Employees must remove fire hazards. Hot work permits must be completed and a fire watch provided. Use safe welding and cutting practices, and know where emergency evacuation routes are. Flammable, combustible liquids, materials. To prevent accidents associated with flammable liquids and materials, employees must do the following. Store portable flammables properly. Containers should be labeled properly. Store away from ignition sources and hot areas. Store away from other chemicals. Use grounding when transferring materials from one container to another. Forklifts and other power industrial trucks. In order to operate a fork truck, operator training is required and operators must be certified. Documented inspections must be completed prior to each use. Operators shall not exceed load capacities, operate a truck with obstructed views, operate at unsafe speeds, raise or lower loads while the truck is in motion, not transport other employees, and ignore overhead obstructions. Grinding. Grinding operations can be dangerous. Prior to operating grinders, tradespersons must inspect grinders before each use, not operate grinders with damaged wheels, only use grinders with guards and handles. Abrasive wheels must be compatible with the grinder and the correct size. Abrasive wheel RPM shall be less than or equal to the grinder's RPM. Hand and power tools. Our hand and power tool policy requires tradespersons to do the following. Remove all damaged tools. Inspect tools prior to each use. Don't remove tool guards, handles, or other safety devices. Follow tool manufacturer's instructions. Be trained on how to operate the tool. Keep equipment blades sharp. Remove power sources when making adjustments to the tools. Keep body parts clear of line of fire or pinch point hazards. Hazard communication. Employers are required to do the following for their employees regarding hazard communication. Provide right-to-know information regarding chemicals used. Provide proper training about chemical substances. Instruct employees on how to utilize SDS BinderWorks to review safety data sheets. And make available the company-written program. Employees are required to make sure all chemical containers are labeled and labels are legible. Hazard communication. Employers are required to do the following for their employees regarding hazard communication. Employees have the right to know about chemical substances they use, so the employer must provide that information. Provide proper training about chemical substances. Instruct employees how to utilize SDS BinderWorks to review safety data sheets regarding chemicals we use. Make available the company written program. Employees are required to make sure all chemical containers are labeled and labels are legible. Heating devices. There must be plenty of fresh air available when using temp heating. A competent person must monitor air for CO buildup. Portable heaters fueled by LP shall be equipped with automatic shutoffs. Temp heaters shall be placed at least 10 feet away from combustible materials, and fuel must be stored properly and in adequate containers. Helicopter lifts. There are times when we use helicopters to set equipment and have to comply with all applicable regulations of the Federal Aviation Administration. At this time, please review the 10 bullet points included on this slide. Hexavalent chromium. Employees can be exposed to hexavalent chromium from hot work performed on stainless steel. Health effects associated with hexachromium include eye, respiratory, and skin irritations, as well as cancer with chronic exposure. To prevent illnesses, Mechanical will provide appropriate training to affected employees, conduct air monitoring in areas where stainless steel hot work is performed, use smoke eaters to reduce or remove welding fumes, instruct employees on how to position welding hoods away from the direction of the fumes, provide respirators to affected employees if necessary, provide proper PPE to our employees, and employees must maintain good hygiene when working with stainless steel and the potential for exposure exists. Hoists for personnel and materials. When hoisting platforms containing employees, we must do the following. Follow manufacturer specifications regarding using hoists. Platforms must be properly labeled and operated in a safe manner. Operators must be properly trained. Full-length gates and bars shall exist on hoist cars and operated from that perspective. Personnel hoist cages and platforms shall have overhead protective covers. Housekeeping. Maintaining good housekeeping reduces the risk of injury. Employees shall clean as work progresses, store materials in an orderly manner, keep walking and working surfaces clear of slip and trip hazards, clean up spills and slippery conditions, dispose of greasy and oily rags properly, and clean up flammable and combustible liquid spills immediately. Ladders. Ladders are a tool that we must use in the construction industry to gain access to work at levels we can't reach. Employees must follow these safe ladder use tips. Do not use damaged ladders. Remove damaged ladders from service. Inspect ladders prior to each use. Keep ladder rungs clear of mud and debris. Use ladders only on firm and level ground. Labels shall be legible. Watch for overhead electrical lines when setting up ladders. And employees shall be properly trained on safe use of ladders. Types of ladders we use in our industry include straight ladders, step ladders, extension ladders, job-built ladders, fixed ladders, and specialty ladders. Lasers. When working with or around lasers, employees must be properly trained on the safe use of and hazards associated with lasers, don the proper PPE including eye and body protection, create controlled access zones around the work area, use barricades and signage in conjunction with the controlled access zone, and laser lights shall be shut off when not in use. Lead. If construction materials suspected of containing lead are discovered, such as older paint, stop and contact your supervisor immediately. Demolition or modification work are the tasks where the exposure potential is highest. Proper PPE must be worn when working with materials that may contain lead. Employees must have proper training on the health effects associated with lead. Mechanicals shall have a lead compliance program available. Line breaking. When performing line breaking on a piping system, confirm the system is secured against the release of stored energy. Employees must be aware and use caution if flammable and hazardous materials existed in the system. Perform lockout, tagout, and tryout in coordination with the customer and general contractor. Coordinate all activities with the customer's facilities department. Use proper PPE and have a fresh water source available. Flush or purge systems prior to line breaking and performing work, and follow mechanical's line breaking protocol. Lockout, tagout, tryout. It is critical that we follow lockout, tagout, tryout procedures prior to performing any work or maintenance on equipment with hazardous energy sources. Energy sources include electricity, mechanical, hydraulic, pneumatic, and thermal, and must be locked out, tagged out, and tried out properly. If systems can't be locked out, we must use a tag. Follow mechanical's lockout, tagout procedures. Coordinate with the customer and general contractor. All affected employees must have proper training, and the most important step in the process is to verify equipment is locked out by attempting to start it. Manual lifting. To prevent injuries associated with manual lifting, minimize manual lifting by using mechanical equipment. Lift large and heavier items using a team. Reduce the amount of twisting, stooping, and reaching when manual lifting. Minimize carrying distances. Store materials for easy lifting. Remove obstructions from walking paths. Rest multiple times when lifting and moving long distances. Pre-plan the lift. Use good body postures. Stop what you are doing if you feel discomfort and report the issue to your supervisor immediately. Material handling, rigging, and storage. To avoid material handling injuries, use mechanical material handling equipment first. Then use proper manual lifting techniques. Keep body parts clear of pinch points when lifting and setting objects down. Wear gloves when lifting equipment. Complete mechanical's rigging plan and follow its rigging protocol. Inspect all rigging equipment prior to use. Rigging shall be secured and the load properly balanced. Store materials properly and securely. Motor vehicle and mechanized equipment. In order to operate a company vehicle, a valid driver's license is required. Operators must comply with all federal and state rules and regulations. Hands-free cell phones must be used when operating equipment. A pre-trip inspection must take place. Rated load capacities of vehicles shall not be exceeded. Secure construction materials when transporting, and a CDL may be required in medical evaluation when operating certain types of equipment. Occupational noise exposure. The purpose of our program is to protect employees from long-term hearing loss. To protect our employees from high noise exposure levels, we shall do the following. Use administrative controls such as employee rotation. Use engineering controls like modifying equipment to reduce noise levels. Don PPE such as earplugs, earmuffs, or both. In high noise level areas, signs must be posted. For those employees exposed to high noise levels, training is required. Personal protective equipment. Mechanical Incorporated requires the following PPE. Eye protection, including safety glasses with side shields, face shields when necessary, goggles when necessary, a hard hat, hand protection based on the hazard, foot protection including work boots and steel-toed shoes, respirators which require a fit test and medical evaluation, and high visibility clothing. Job sites may require additional PPE based on the hazards. Pinch points. To reduce the risk of pinch point injuries, consider the following. Analyze your work area and ask, if the part moves, will the movement affect me? Will my body be in the way of the movement? Use caution when placing your hands, fingers, or feet between two objects. Do not operate tools or machinery without proper guarding or safeguards. Wear appropriate PPE such as gloves. Follow all lockout, tagout, tryout procedures. Secure equipment and materials for movement. Watch for rolling objects. Refrain from wearing jewelry and loose clothing, and know how to shut off equipment immediately in case of an emergency. Pneumatic tools. To avoid injury while operating pneumatic tools, inspect all tools prior to use, follow manufacturer's recommended safe operating pressures, secure hoses to compressors, tools and fittings, and secure fittings to tools. Safety clips shall be used to keep tools and connections attached. Pneumatic systems shall have pressure reduction devices at the source of supply line when hoses larger than 1/2 inch are used. Powder actuated tools. Safe operation of powder actuated tools shall include proper training of tool operation. Tools shall be inspected and tested prior to use. Only load tools for immediate use. Tools shall not be left loaded and unattended. Guards shall be in place on tools. Tools' point of operations shall be pointed in a safe direction. Power sources shall be removed prior to making adjustments to tools, and operators shall follow manufacturer's recommendations. Pressure testing protocol. Prior to performing pressure testing on piping systems, tradespersons must comply with Mechanical's pressure testing safety protocol, which includes the 12 bullet points on this slide. Please review these bullet points on your own. Process safety management. Mechanical works often in process safety management facilities. In order to do so, we must comply with OSHA's process safety management regulation. The purpose of this program is to prevent the occurrence of significant releases of toxic substances as well as fires. Process means any activity involving highly hazardous chemicals, including any use, storage, manufacturing, and handling. Training per the requirement of facilities we work at is required prior to performing work. We must follow procedures identified per our customers. We must also complete an activity hazard analysis prior to performing work. We must follow all associated operating procedures already in place identified by our customer. Refrigerant. HVAC systems work exposes our employees to refrigerants, which can be dangerous. With this in mind, we must do the following to stay safe. Please review on your own the bullet points included on this slide. Respiratory protection. Utilizing respirators is our last resort. However, at times we have to, based on the atmospheric hazards associated with our work. Types of respirators we may use include air purifying respirators and supplied air respirators. The safety department is responsible for identifying and selecting proper respirators based on the hazard. In order to wear a respirator, employees must be respirator fit tested annually, have a medical evaluation and examination annually, and complete respiratory protection training compliant with OSHA's standard. Sandblasting. When sandblasting, employees must wear appropriate PPE, use appropriate barricades and barriers, sandblast on off shifts when possible, follow our respiratory protection protocol, use silica-free sandblast media such as Black Beauty Shot, keep body parts clear of the sandblast flow. Scaffolds. In order to use scaffolding, we must do the following. Scaffolds must be erected by a qualified erector. Scaffold user must go through user training. Inspections must take place prior to use and by a qualified person and tagged properly. Scaffolds shall support 4 times the intended load. Scaffolds shall be placed on solid footing. Scaffolds more than 10 feet tall requires fall protection. No loose equipment shall be left on scaffold. No work on scaffold outdoors during storms or windy conditions. Scaffolds shall be properly secured to structures. Casters and wheels shall be locked on mobile scaffolding. Mobile scaffold should not be moved by the user or when the user is on the scaffold, and scaffold shall only be entered and exited at the ground levels. Signs, signals, barricades. All affected employees shall be trained to look for warning signs, signals, and barricades. Workers shall obey signs and signals and avoid barricades. Signs, signals, and barricades shall be clearly marked and visible from a distance. Employees shall obey all state and local regulations. Silica. Because exposure to crystalline silica is dangerous, employers must protect their employees by doing the following. The work tasks associated with silica exposure include concrete cutting, coring, drilling, and other trades activities. Tools shall be equipped with dust collecting attachments or with a water supply. Silica waste shall be properly disposed of. Mechanical and our employees must abide by OSHA Standard 29 CFR 1926.1153. Mechanical must perform silica dust sampling and must possess a silica exposure control plan. Soft tissue safety. Construction workers are exposed to strain and sprain injuries. Strains are injuries to muscles or tendons. Sprains are tearing or stretching injuries to ligaments. To avoid these types of injuries, use proper lifting techniques. Use mechanical equipment and reduce manual lifting. Use caution when operating, entering, and exiting equipment. Use power tools rather than hand tools when possible. Exercise regularly and stretch prior to activities. Steel erection. Though we don't employ steel workers or perform steel erection, we do work on construction sites where these activities take place. To protect our employees, we must do the following. Have a fall protection plan in place where fall hazards over 6 feet exists. Fall hazards include falling from structures to ground, falls from one level to another, falls from ladders, scaffolds, and falls from aerial lifts. Falling objects also injure employees and have to be safety planned for. We must protect our employees when material handling. Again, mechanical employees don't erect steel, but work around trades that do. Utility vehicle operator safety. We use utility vehicles to assist us in moving ourselves and materials around on our job sites. To operate utility vehicles safely, we must do the following. Safety labels and warnings must be in place on all utility vehicles and must be followed. Equipment must be inspected each day and in good operating condition. Safety features that exist on the vehicles must not be removed or compromised and must work properly. Operators must use seat belts. Operators must operate the vehicle safely, following all job site rules and regulations. Operators must be trained on vehicle operation and reference the manufacturer's operating manual. Speed kills, so avoid speeding and drive per the conditions. Walking and working conditions. Employers are required to make sure walking and working surfaces are safe by doing the following. Walking and working surfaces shall be kept clean, orderly, and in sanitary condition. Walking and working surfaces shall be maintained free of hazards, such as sharp or protruding objects, loose boards, corrosion, leaks, spills, snow, and ice. Walking and working surfaces must ensure that each surface can support the maximum intended load for the surface. Entry and exits must be maintained in a safe manner. Walking and working surfaces must be inspected often and hazards removed. Welding, cutting, soldering, brazing. To perform welding, cutting, soldering, and brazing operations safely, employees must do the following. Wear appropriate PPE, including flame-resistant clothing. No clothing shall be worn with pockets or cuffs. Welding helmets with shaded lenses are required. Welding equipment shall be inspected prior to each use. Proper grounding shall exist on all equipment. Defective equipment shall be removed from use. Cables shall not be allowed to lie in water or oil. Proper storage and use of gas cylinders is required. Adequate ventilation must be used to remove harmful welding fumes. To prevent fires, property must be protected from molten metals. A fire watch must be established and fire extinguishers must be available. Tradespersons must be trained on welding safety. Working around water. Employees working around water must be protected by doing the following. Wear life vests. Life-saving rings must exist every 90 to 100 feet. Rescue boats must be available. Safety planning must take place prior to working around water, such as completing an activity hazard analysis. The safety department must coordinate safety planning, and we must also coordinate with the general contractor and customer. Working overhead. Mechanical employees do a lot of overhead work that requires awkward body postures. To stay safe, we must do the following. Wear appropriate PPE, including safety glasses with side shields and face shield. Adjust body postures to avoid sprains and strains. Perform work away from the face and eyes. Take breaks when feeling pain or discomfort, and use tools or equipment less in weight. EEO policy. All employees and applicants have an equal opportunity for employment without regard to race, color, religion, sex, sexual orientation, national origin, age, disability, or reprisal. We provide a work environment free from harassment. Mechanical actively recruits minorities and female applicants. Interested applicants should apply in our main office. Harassment policy. Mechanical must provide a workplace free from unlawful and improper harassment of employees by employees or agents of Mechanical or by its customers, accounts, and vendors. Harassment and bullying types include bullying, stalking, sexual, racial, religious, disability, age, sexual orientation. OSHA. OSHA stands for the Occupational Safety and Health Act. It was created in 1970. It was established to create and enforce safety and health standards and regulations in the workplace. It gave employers and employees certain rights and responsibilities regarding workplace safety and health. It defines competent persons and workers' responsibilities. Congratulations! You have completed new employee safety orientation and are ready to take the quiz and finish the process. If you have any questions, be sure to ask your supervisor. And again, on behalf of Mechanical Incorporated, welcome.